Terrorists bred in turmoil are now marching by the hundreds towards Iraq's unstable capital of Baghdad. 3 years after the last American troops left the country, the U.S. is now watching a siege from afar and figuring out how to stop it.
Black flags and machine guns are the calling card for a group of madmen carving out makeshift borders for a new Islamic State. The Islamic State of Iraq and Syria started about a year ago and is extreme. Al-Qaeda doesn't want anything to do with them. Its roots started in Iraq, but grew in the middle of Syria's bloody civil war that's still raging just across the Iraqi border. That war began shortly after the last U.S. troops left Iraq in 2011. 3 years later, ISIS now has control over a massive stretch of land spanning across both northern Syria and Iraq. They're hell-bent on ridding the country of Shiite Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki's government. He's the guy who was put in charge by the U.S., but he has done little to promote positive relations between Sunnis and Shiites. Those are the two largest Muslim factions in the Arab world, and ones that are in a constant battle for power, with Sunnis more prevalent in the north of Iraq and Shiites in the south. ISIS has money and weapons. The group's also unrelenting, executing as many as 1,700 Iraqi soldiers who they'd taken prisoner along the way. Iraq is fighting back with local militants and army airstrikes aimed at trying to regain control of areas lost. Baghdad is still secure for now, a place where the U.S. has sent 275 combat-ready troops to protect its massive embassy in the capital. So far, that's the only move the U.S. has announced, despite Secretary of State John Kerry hinting at some cooperation with Iran. While the world tries to figure out the best way to stop the savage advances of these conscienceless jihadists, more than 1 million Iraqi refugees will continue to fill rows of blue and white tents, waiting to find out when or if there will be a home to go back to.
A crazed couple set out on a Las Vegas rampage with death on their minds. It's a story of guns, hate, and senseless murder that took 3 innocent lives.
What ended here in the aisle of this Las Vegas Walmart started inside this rundown apartment in the hardscrabble part of town. Jared and Amanda Miller were married. Jared was edgy, paranoid, and angry. He ranted to whoever he could about the government, and when he got pulled over for having a suspended license, he teed off on the Indiana DMV.
Sick and tired of all these laws and regulations, and if they come to arrest me for non-compliance or whatever, I'm just going to start shooting people.
Something finally snapped, and in a scene all too familiar in the U.S., the Millers grabbed their guns and headed to do something terrible.
Today, I'm sad to report that 2 of my officers were killed in a line of duty, and an innocent citizen also lost their life.
The officers were killed while on break at Cece's Pizza.
Jared Miller pulled a handgun out and shot Officer Saldo 1 time in the back of his head. At that time, Officer Beck immediately began to react when he was confronted with lethal gunfire, and he was shot once in the throat area.
The Millers took the officers' guns and headed across the street to Walmart, where they killed Joseph Wilcox, who tried to stop them with his own concealed weapon. Special assault teams eventually pinned them in the back of the store. Another cop relayed information from the security camera booth.
They're looking at each other, looks like they're shooting at each other. Female just shot herself in the head.
Both officers, Alan Beck and Igor Soldo, were fathers. Fathers and cops who are in the wrong place at the wrong time. Shootings like this have become so commonplace, and the issues of gun control and mental health so politically toxic that Americans have become numb, with no clear way out of an endless cycle of murders and memorials.
Now to D.C. He's been in Congress for more than a decade, but that cozy relationship with Washington appears to have cost House Majority Leader Eric Cantor his seat and put the GOP on notice.
By the time the sun rose Wednesday morning, the backlash had already started. A shakeup of Congress that no one saw coming. came from a town just 108 miles to the south. 65,000 voters in the districts surrounding Richmond, Virginia had seen enough and voted out the second highest ranking House Republican, Majority Leader Eric Cantor.
It's disappointing, sure, but I believe in this country. I believe there's opportunity around the next corner for all of us.
The next corner is brighter for this guy, college professor and Tea Party candidate Dave Bratt. He beat Cantor by more than 10 points, challenging Cantor's controversial support of immigration reform and spending less than $200,000 to win over voters.
We found that they were eager to send someone to Washington who has a deep understanding of economics and that can actually help to fix the real problems we face in this country.
Challenging the status quo in D.C. likely helped him unseat a man who'd won Virginia's 7th district every 2 years since 2000. It not only means Cantor will lose his seat come January, but he's also out of the House leadership after resigning.
Effective July 31st, I will be stepping down as Majority Leader.
Cantor was one of the only choices to become the next Speaker of the House. The GOP seemed to be waiting for Speaker John Boehner to step down, but after Cantor's shocking loss, Boehner may be the Republicans' best and only option.
He's been a very good leader for our party. He's got some decisions to make.
When voters in Virginia make their decisions come November, they'll have a Tea Party candidate to choose from. One that's reminded the rest of the GOP that it's not immune to determined grassroots efforts that have the ear of the people.
Americans hate Congress more than ever. In 2014, Gallup says Americans' confidence in our elected officials is at a pathetic 7%. That's the lowest rating ever, down from their 1973 high of 42%. The problem is that lawmakers can't seem to work together, divided over issues like immigration reform, entitlement reform, and education reform, just to name a few. And when it comes to actual productivity, on average, about 162 bills are passed into law. In 2013, there were only 73. And whether you believe in smaller government or not, when only 7% of Americans approve of Congress, you can believe there's a problem.
He was part of a platoon that was the first of its kind, an integral part for America's push through the Pacific in World War II. Chester Nez was the last living original code talker. He died Wednesday of kidney failure.
To beat the Japanese, we have got to understand them.
As it remains today, understanding and protecting communication during war was imperative, leading the U.S. to use an uncrackable code at the time, based on the unwritten Navajo Indian language. The 382nd Platoon was made up of 29 code talkers, who were the only ones who were able to speak and translate it.
If you got caught, the code would be useless.
That's the 2002 movie Wind Talkers, based on the platoon's amazing story. A story Nez couldn't tell anyone about for nearly 20 years, until the program was declassified in 1968. But ever since, he and the other 28 original code talkers have been honored across the country for their role in winning the Pacific Theater.
This one code that came in to me when we hit Guadalcanal, the code said, Japanese machine gun nest on your right flank.
Nez spoke often about his experiences, even writing a book a few years back. He spent most of his remaining years volunteering at the VA hospital in Albuquerque, New Mexico. But for the nearly 4 years the U.S. fought in the Pacific, Nez helped win the war by lending the Marines his native tongue. Chester Nez was 93.
Its heartbeat is pure Michigan muscle. It's a throwback to a half-century of American classics. And what's under the hood is music to the ears of gearheads everywhere. This is the Base 770, a new muscle car just entering the market.
There she is. Yep. There's Eleanor.
This new ride is the baby of Equus, a Michigan startup determined to put a new face on the American muscle car. Look at Equus's 770 closely. You'll see the best features of the Chevy Camaro, the Dodge Charger, and the Ford Mustang Shelby GT. Equus used them all as motivation to come up with this mean ride with plenty of ponies under the hood. The Base 770 packs 640 horsepower into a supercharged 6.2-liter V8 from the Chevy Corvette. It hits a top speed of 200 miles an hour. But that type of performance isn't cheap. The 770 ranges from $250 to $290 grand. While the rest of the American auto industry is trying to get back in the muscle game, Equus isn't shy about taking some of the market away from the usual suspects. At the same time, it's using the best of what made the style great in the first place.
This is beauty, the unbridled beauty of Mustang.
Charger, new leader of the Dodge Rebellion. Muscle enough to catch anything on the road.
The interior is a combination of 2013 technology with concepts from the 60s. Each one of these rides takes 4 months to build. Orders are coming in from around the world, and if your pockets are deep enough, Equus thinks you're putting the next generation American muscle car in your garage.
Oak Center, Hawk 15, if you passing 200 for 230, now, Hawk 15.
A town in Colorado is tired of hearing about the U.S. government using drones at home. The FBI admitted to using them to spy on Americans. That ticked off folks 60 miles east of Denver in Deer Trail. The town of 598 wants to make it known that inside their city limits, no drones are allowed. Deer Trail postponed a vote for the second time Tuesday on an ordinance that would allow people to become drone hunters. People over 21 can buy a license for $25. Using a shotgun only, hunters can try to take out any drone that invades the town airspace. Shooting off a piece of a drone earns a $25 reward. A drone full kill gets whoever brings it in $100. Drone technology is advancing by the minute. The Navy wrapped up its second round of tests on the X-47B, an unmanned drone that lands on aircraft carriers. But that was at sea. The folks at Deer Trail have never seen one of these cruising through the Colorado skies. The town says it's mainly symbolic. The FAA already said shooting unmanned air vehicles is illegal. But if the law is passed sometime in 2014, soldiers flying drones through Colorado better keep an eye out.
Now don't you know you're in my way now? But can't you see you grant my style?
Cattle farming isn't usually a scientific job, but a concrete worker who raises cows on the side worked for almost a decade to spawn a bizarre creation. John Bertheld wanted to take a panda, one of China's national symbols, and have it be born from a cow in Roy, Washington. He tried to mate the right combination of cows for 7 years, and in late June, he finally saw it. a miniature cow with the markings of a panda.
A sweet, cuddly, vicious little panda.
Pandas are an endangered species, hardly ever seen outside a zoo. Panda cows are even more rare. There's just a couple dozen in the world.
Hey, you're making me look stupid. Get out here, panda jerk!
You are my fire, the one desire.
Bertheld named him Peanut, the white ring around his belly the telltale sign of a panda cow. Bertheld says he'll probably sell him, not knowing what the rare animal is worth. He's just happy to have finally got what he wanted. The black and white face of a panda on the face of a mini cow.
He is just the perfect specimen. They don't get much perfecter than him.